which I got because I bought a Sony Vaio computer.
Yeah.
And I have the upper version. I have a better microphone than yours.
So
And my computer's better.
Hold on, I have to ask, since you're editing this, is this the start of this? Like, is that conversation going in?
Probably. Welcome to Subject to Change,
Welcome
everybody.
to Subject to Change, everybody. The new GodzillaMendoza and Davidian Productions podcast. Except he changed his name.
No. It's Davidian Productions and GodzillaMendoza, because as you recall, you had this project on the back burner for like 6 months, and you never touched it, and then I just said one day, hey, can I be in charge of it? And now it's working, because, you know, as we all know, I'm much better at organizing things than you are.
That's true. You know
so
what?
It's the,
That's
so it's
where you succeed and I fail, is that David can put out videos faster and is way more organized.
Subject to Change, a Davidian Productions, or whatever the name's going to be soon, because it's going to change. A Davidian Productions production featuring GodzillaMendoza.
Featuring special guest star GodzillaMendoza.
Well, you're a regular cast member on this, so you have a guaranteed seat on the show, so you're more than the featured guest.
Oh, okay. Well.
So yeah,
we should bring in Rob Liefeld for an episode of the podcast.
We should. We would love that. So,
yeah.
you know, podcasts are actually sort of growing and becoming a bigger thing on the internet. And a couple of people on Twitter have asked us about this. So we thought, hey, why not? I mean, people want it. We're willing to talk about movies. This is basically what we do in our free time anyway. So why not? So
I mean, we could essentially just start recording this at like lunch at school every day. Is it just?
Yeah, except that the audio would be terrible because there's all the noise in the background.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing like my aim is a 30 to 45 minute podcast, like weekly. I'm hoping, but I'm not sure. We're gonna see how this turns out, but that's my aim, and I want to do like a weekly podcast where we sort of catch up on what each other is doing. So we've got a bunch of different like sections and subjects we could talk about. Like, we're gonna give a weekly update on what we're talking about. We're gonna talk about the news. We're gonna have little mini editorials, and we're gonna have talk about big news stories. We're gonna review movies if we see them. Xavier's gonna rant about Dan Slott a lot, and then if any of you have any questions, send it to any of us on Twitter, and we'll think about it. We might feature it in the next episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is getting uploaded on YouTube, right? They could just ask us in
so
comments.
If you're on YouTube, comment below, and hey, we might answer it if it's good enough.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let us begin. So, we're going to start with the first segment, what we've been watching / reading.
Yeah, what we've been watching and reading. Well, I think you should go first.
This is like a quick subject. We're going to just talk about what we've been watching so you kind of know what we're into. And we like to talk about not only stuff that's popular and that's in the news, but stuff that we just like.
Yeah.
So, this is what that's about. It's just talking about stuff that we like and, sharing all that. So, first of all, I haven't been watching a lot of new stuff lately, but what I have been watching is that on this streaming service called Go90.com, it's only available in the US, so sorry for people outside of the US.
Take that, Australia.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Take that for not having as weird politics as we do.
Good aim, mate.
So anyway, this streaming service called Go90, which has a bunch of terrible millennial originals crap. It's like if your dad tried to make a bunch of online Netflix shows for millennials, except he totally didn't get it.
So it's like a bunch of John Green movies in the form of TV shows.
Kinda, yeah. But they they recently signed a deal with Warner Brothers TV for, amongst other things, Almost Human, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, it's like Veronica Mars, and of course, most importantly, Babylon 5. So we can watch all of those shows online for free. Cool. And I've been watching Babylon 5 since then because it's amazing. I love Babylon 5 so much.
Hey, now that I have somewhere to watch it, I need to go check it out because you've been bugging me for 6 months now to go check it out. And every time I've tried to find a way to watch it, I have a flashlight with me, a flashlight with an A, and every time I've tried to watch it, something has gone wrong at some point. Either the DVD box set, I order it, and then they just cancel it, and they're like, "Nah, we're not gonna sell it to you, man." And I was like, "What? All right, at least I got a refund." Or then I try to go, download it, and it's like the file sizes are so absurdly large, and there's also only the first season is available on like the pirate site. Like I swear the which TV channel did it originally air on?
It was on UP. It was like, I forget. It was like it's actually had a complicated history. It was the PTN, the Primetime Entertainment Network, in the 90s.
Well, whoever they are, they're treating it like the Chris Benoit of TV shows. It needs to not exist anymore.
It's like, because Warner Brothers tried to start up this cable channel in the 90s called PTEN, and then it sort of slowly morphed into the WB, and then the WB became the CW today, because it's now a joint venture with CBS. So it has this weird, complicated history, and it's like this part of Warner Brothers television history that they don't really want to remember. But it's so sad because this TV show is awesome, and now it's on Go90, so I've been watching it. It's like the best science fiction TV show I've ever seen. It's amazing. Like, I mean, you know how there's that like science fiction trope where there's like a deadly disease, and then the doctor's gonna find the cure right before it kills everyone?
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. There's an episode in the show where there's a deadly disease that's going to kill an entire species. And then the doctor finds the cure right after everybody dies.
That sounds like whenever I try to do anything helpful.
It's just such a tragic episode, and it's like,
hey guys, I found the cure. Oh.
It's such a great TV show because there are so many like interesting, dynamic characters, and the writing is amazing. If you've ever read a J. Michael Straczynski comic, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, J. Michael
But it's that if he wrote a science fiction TV show.
Yeah, the creator of Babylon 5 also wrote Spider-Man for like 8 years, and some of those are like my favorite Spider-Man comics. I mean, certainly there's...
So why are you not watching the TV show?
I'm getting around to it. Give me a second. I actually remember that he wrote a lot of like really controversial stuff into Spider-Man, but it was kind of interesting. Like when he revealed that Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn were having an affair behind Peter's back, and that resulted in like Gwen having twins that had like progeria, and like 10 years later came back as like full-grown adults with superpowers because Green Goblin was their dad, and then they thought Spider-Man was their dad, and then they just started trying to murder him. It was great.
It's so weird. And like Babylon 5 is like so awesome. I mean, the special effects are cheesy. The sets are minimal at best, and then sometimes the alien costuming and the makeups look silly. But it's just so wonderfully written. Like, the characters are dynamic, they're interesting, they change over time, and like, it's a science fiction TV show that is like, it's dedicated to the area, dedicated to peace and understanding, like the TV show is, but also like the characters and everything. And it's not like the kind of peace where it's like, oh, if we only didn't have religion, would be peaceful. It's like,
yeah. Star Trek always has this sort of like backhanded like, because it's very clear that the creator of Star Trek hates religion and is like, well, the world would be better without it. So he's constantly like,
Gene Roddenberry was an atheist.
Yeah, so he's like,
Gene Roddenberry.
He has to fight the writers on the show to get certain things in because they hated his weird anti-religion thing so much.
Like, I feel like the whole Bajoran religion thing in DS9 was a response to that. But in
I have no idea what that
Deep
is.
Space Nine, they tackle real world religious issues and in a really good way. Like, my favorite episode ever of Babylon 5 is Passing Through Gethsemane, where Brad Dourif... I could have
sworn you just said DS9 and then said my favorite episode of Babylon 5. I'm confused.
Yeah. So I was saying that there's the religion in DS9 that they have called the Bajorans, these people.
Yeah.
And they have a religious beliefs, and they sort of... I feel like that was an attempt by the writers to make up for other religious stuff that they did in previous Star Trek episodes.
Oh, okay.
But in Babylon 5, they take a more real-world angle, not so much a fake religion that they invented. And my favorite episode of Babylon 5 is Passing Through Gethsemane, where Brad Dourif plays a monk. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but let's just say that he isn't who he thinks he is. And then this brings up all... Hey, are you still here?
You know, I also like Brad Dourif when he plays Chucky in those movies. I really like the Child's Play movies. Like, of all the dumb 80s slasher movies, I think they're my favorite. Just because, like, the character of Chucky is so charismatic compared to like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, which I swear are basically just the same guy with a different mask. Like I always thought, like, you ever hear those stories of guys who have like two separate families that they just like go back and forth from, you know, like they just lead two lives at once. I think that Jason Voorhees just switches masks and then just goes to a different part of town. Like, whichever town Halloween takes place in is like maybe like a 20-minute drive from Camp Crystal Lake.
I haven't watched any of these movies, so, you know, I don't care about these, so don't get started on them because it'll just be talking to a brick wall. So, watch Babylon 5. It's amazing. And then I've also been watching a lot of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is kind of the same show, but with more of a Star Trek flavor.
Well, didn't they, like,
and then I've been watching
the same origin, like, at one point? JMS pitched a
JMS show. JMS has alleged that Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, totally ripped off his Babylon 5 concept. Basically, like, he says that he was shopping it around to various TV networks, including Paramount. And then Paramount said, "Nah, we don't want it." And then, like, a couple years later, Deep Space Nine, which is like the same concept.
What happened to that guy who tried to pitch that show to Cartoon Network? That was like a fun music school, but like they didn't really like the idea. And then a couple years later, they like reworked it and then just had the same show again, but with the teacher as Andre 3000. And then he sued them and had the show canceled. Except JMS wasn't like a jerk about it, and he just kind of let them pass.
But yeah, I've just been watching a lot of science fiction TV shows lately. The Next Generation, The Drumhead is a great episode. Watch it. Like Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, and Babylon 5. So that's what I am. I'm a sci-fi nerd. So you know a little bit more about me now. Moving on to Xavier, we already know what he's gonna be talking about, right?
Yeah, I've been reading Punisher. I really like Punisher. I think he's like my third favorite comics character, and I've read like 8 Punisher ongoings this week. And it just occurs to me that like he's really dramatically inconsistent in terms of personality because different writers try so hard to like steer him in different directions. Like, you can read a Spider-Man comic from like 30 years ago and read a Spider-Man comic from last week, and more or less he has the same personality. While as the Punisher is, like, super all over the place. Because, like, Garth Ennis, who's written some of the better Punisher comics, which I'm making David read right now, has, like, this really dark, cynical, angry, depressed tone. But then Matt Fraction writes it, who's the same author of a comic called Sex Criminals that I've been getting my friend Josh to read. And it's, like, really tongue-in-cheek and goofy. And then, like, Rick Remender writes it and then decides to turn it into Frankencastle, in which the Punisher is killed by Daken, Wolverine's son, and then his parts are found by Morbius the living vampire and then stitched back together so he's a Frankenstein Punisher. And while I was reading that, I just kept thinking I'm really upset because this is way better than it has any right to be. Like, this is genuinely kind of well written and fun, and I hate that I like Frankencastle.
That sounds like such a stupid thing.
I know, right? Well, we were talking about it. Like I said, like, despite how retarded the premise is, they managed to, like, have such interesting characters, like, good plots, fun world building, like so many different well-thought-out parts put in that it kind of justified its own premise. And then I think you compared it to, like, Mission Impossible 5, and what was the other one?
Mad Max Fury Road.
Exactly, where it's like, it's so well done, it doesn't matter how stupid the premise is. Hey, why is the world a desert in Mad Max?
Nuclear water wars.
They ran out of gas. That was like the gas became. I mean, we ran out of our natural resource of fuel. How did that make the Earth become a desert? Or is it just because like? Or is it just because that
it's kind of like asking
takes place in Australia and that's just how it is? Like if Mad Max.
It's kind of like asking. Well, it's kind of like asking if the Mad Max movies are in the same continuity. They're like saying,
I believe so.
yes.
Kind of. It's like how all the Evil Dead movies are kind of in the same continuity, but not really.
Yeah.
There is an excuse
I'm still
built
angry.
into Fury Road for how it connects with the other three movies.
I'm still angry at you for making me watch all those Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, Evil Dead's great.
I'm not gonna forgive you for that for a while.
Evil Dead's awesome.
I think we've been talking about this stuff for long enough. I know that you have some other stuff up there that you can talk about, but I think we need to move on.
Okay.
So
now on to this week's episode of the Headlines Show. What's up, Headlines? David Fincher is directing World War Z 2.
Step it.
What?
I'm pulling up the exact article that we're gonna talk about, so
you could like read it while we're. Well, you see, I really think David Fincher is a cool director. Fight Club.
Wait. What are we talking about? So there's the link, and it says the first thing is Disney and Fox release dates. I'll look up those. You can talk about David Fincher. So there was an article on Variety last week. So that said that David Fincher is close to a deal to releasing or close to a deal to direct whatchamacallits
World
War Z 2 with Brad Pitt. And this is interesting because Brad Pitt has had a long time relationship with David Fincher, going all the way back to Seven. I think Seven was before Fight Club.
Yeah,
right?
Seven or Fight Club. I can't remember which came first.
One of those
but
two.
They both came out really close to each other.
Yeah. So yeah, they both came out at around the same time. And then
over the years, like David Fincher's kind of like taken a back seat and isn't really doing a whole lot as far as
he directed his last movie. He last directed a movie in 2014 with Gone Girl with Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah.
And then he's been directing a pilot for Netflix called
movie where you could see Batman's
something.
dick. That's all I know about Gone Girl is that you could see Ben Affleck's crotch.
I read about half of the book, and I haven't seen the movie.
How was it?
It was weird and interesting, and I kind of feel like they had no idea where they were going with it, but it was at least interesting.
Huh. Well, that seems like something David Fincher would like to direct. So, what bothers me about this is that I think World War Z 1 is one of the dumbest zombie movies in a long time. Like, I know a couple people will probably say, no, you're crazy, man. It's a great movie. I
feel like
there was just something so half of it toothless about
amazing.
it.
Like,
all the stuff with the outbreak was really cool.
Until they got to the aircraft carrier, it was all amazing.
For me, it really fell off right when they got to that medical facility at the end, because it was like, here's this giant epic globe-trotting adventure of zombies all over the world, which is what the book is. It's like seeing how
and here's here's Peter Capaldi for some reason.
Yeah. So,
the ending had the most problems, but for me the opening was the best part, and then it just sort of slowly went downhill. How like the middle was like just like a bunch of like vignettes of landing at this place. Things are not wrong. We learned something new about the virus. Things go wrong. We fly away.
I think it's one of those things that couldn't work as a movie anyway, because it's like
they're like
it would make vignettes. A great TV show for sure.
But like, what I thought was really great about World War Z was that there was this like it was almost like a thriller with zombies. How it was just like.
It was like a disaster movie with zombies, where it was like instead of a tidal wave or a hurricane, it's just zombies.
Like, I remember I saw this movie with my cousins who were from Germany, and we saw it at the local theater, and they were like at the edge of their seat. Now they don't watch movies a lot, but it was like a really tense thriller, and I thought that was really cool because most zombie movies aren't like that. They're just a little bit more slow and like. Oh no!
They always stop to think about the philosophy of zombies, but this one was like trying to go for like the logic of zombies. Like, well, how would different parts of the world react? Some people would build a wall. Some people would start having their teeth removed so no one could get bit. And that was all stuff from the book, but then they just kind of hard
stuff
halt.
like,
and then we're stuck in this shitty hospital, and now it's just become a generic zombie movie.
Oh hey, Doctor Who, who's playing a Who doctor? Yeah, Peter Capaldi was playing a WHO doctor.
Is he the old grumpy doctor?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, I don't remember him too well. I haven't seen a lot of Doctor Who, but the only one I have seen is the one with Kilgrave Doctor.
We need to talk about World War Z 2, because that's the thing that we're actually going to be talking about.
Okay, so Brad Pitt's good at producing movies.
He's a very talented. Like, if you don't know this, Brad Pitt hasn't been doing a lot in front of the camera these days. I think he's in like 1 or 2 movies a year, but not really big movies. He does like weird stuff like War Machine for Netflix.
Yeah,
but
course.
It's like 20 like although World War Z 1 was his most successful movie ever, and that only grossed like 500 million worldwide. So he's not that big of a star. But
I feel like I saw a bunch of interviews where he was just talking about how much he didn't want to finish it, like because they kept calling him back for reshoots or rewrites and shit. Like it just
he's
became
a producer.
This, like, ongoing problem.
Yeah, but it came out. But the thing, and then he's actually like a really talented producer behind the scenes. He hasn't done a lot in front of the camera, but he does a lot behind the scenes. Like, Moonlight was something that he was behind. He won an Oscar not for acting, but for producing 12 Years a Slave, Best Picture. Yeah, when you win a Best Picture, the producers get the award. So, and then he also
wasn't it Wolf of Wall Street?
He produced Kick-Ass. No. Wolf of Wall Street was Leo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah. Well, he did produce Kick-Ass. That was pretty cool. I didn't know that he did that until you told me about it the other day.
Yeah, he's a very very prolific producer behind the scenes, unlike his ex-wife now, who tried to be a director and it didn't really work out.
Boy, I've never seen someone fall from like the public eye as hard as Angelina Jolie did. Like it just seems like she's in nothing now.
Well, she's gonna be in Maleficent too, because that's the thing.
Who's excited for that, David? Other than everyone's
still
collective
going to be successful
aunt, everyone's collective overweight 47-year-old aunt is really excited.
Disney movies as a kid.
Who's really she's really excited. No one else is.
So yeah, I'm interested for World War Z 2 because it's gonna be like I'm curious to see what they gave
Brad
to David
Pitt
Fincher
and David Fincher attached. Like these are two really talented guys. What kind of script did they have to get them?
Like
on board?
How did Brad Pitt get David Fincher interested in directing a sequel after he swore off sequels after Alien 3?
Okay,
so that's my question.
Yeah, I forgot he did that one. Oh shit! Yes, Alien 3 is one of like the biggest like failures of Fox ever.
Speaking of Fox, I want to talk about the release dates now, because this is a bit of minor news, but it's interesting for X-Men fans like me. So last week, X-Men Fox dated a bunch of release dates for 2018. So they have 3 movies supposed to be coming out next year. X-Men New Mutants, directed by the Josh Boone, director of The Fault in Our Stars, on March 13th, 2018. Deadpool 2, dated at June 1st, 2018. And Dark Phoenix at November 2nd, 2018. So Deadpool 2 is a no-brainer because it's got a director, it's got a writer. They're probably pretty close to shooting by now.
Yeah, because they got the John Wick director, and I gotta say that's
they got the John Wick and Atomic Blonde director, and then what's his name? The guy who directed Cabin in the Woods did a rewrite on Drew Goddard. Did a rewrite on Paul whatever.
Paul Wernick
and Rhett Reese's script.
Rhett Reese, yeah, those two guys.
And then of course New Mutants has been under the guidance of producer, what's her name?
Akiva Goldsman?
No.
That's a guy.
This is the lady who got X-Men to Fox in the first place. Lauren Schuler Donner. And director Josh Boone. And they've been some rewrites then, and Also, we're pretty close to Deadpool 2 because they cast Cable finally.
Oh yeah, I was kind of surprised that they just got Thanos to be Cable. Like that was one of those.
It's an interesting choice.
Yeah. Well, I think he can do it.
It's a cool choice, I think.
You know what? I actually am pretty happy with that because a lot of the fan casts, like something that pissed me off, was that the fan casts were always actors who were in their 60s and 70s. But Cable is not nearly that. He's maybe mid-40s. He has white hair because he has a disease. Like, his robot arm is an alien that's growing throughout his body. He has a techno-organic virus. It's not a prosthetic arm. Which is why part of his face is all robot-y, too. So, like, everyone kept saying, well, Stephen Lang should do it. And I'm like, Stephen Lang has been in, like, 2 movies that people can name ever. And, well, yes, he can play, like, a gruff, angry old guy. That's not really all there is to Cable. I think it needs to be someone who can do sort of like a, I mean, he's kind of like Kyle Reese mixed with Jesus. In terms of personality.
I just realized that we didn't sync the audio at the beginning of this, so I need you to clap.
We'll do it at the end. We'll do it at the end.
Clap it now! Now!
How about that? Is that enough?
That's 1, 2, 3, clap. Okay, that's better.
There's a time delay. You can't sync it up. Oh my god.
What? Right, let's do the 1, 2, 3 thing.
Okay, 1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6.
The audio cut out and I couldn't hear you say 6 or 7.
6.
7.
8.
All right, that should be enough. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm glad that they got a guy who's not quite like
he's about 49 right now.
Yeah, that seems about the right age to me.
I'm curious what a New Mutants is gonna be like. Because
I'm just imagining like really cringy teen movie with like
YA
superpower. Yeah, a young adult movie like bordering on Twilight with fucking superpowers in it. Like it's gonna look, or it's gonna be like a movie version of how that Cloak and Dagger trailer looked. Did you see that? Cloak and Dagger looks so unwatchable already. I can't. Like, I
if you
hate
don't know,
teenagers.
Josh Boone is like attached to everything. He's attached to do a adaptation of a Stephen King novel. He was addressed to do like one of those vampire movies. I forget which one, but it's like he's been signed on for so many things, and he hasn't done a movie since The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah.
So now he's actually going to be doing another movie. So that's exciting. And then there's going to be X-Men Dark Phoenix, which I think I'm not excited for.
I'm also a little bit happy about the writing for Deadpool 2 because Drew Goddard is a talented man. He wrote the first couple of episodes of Daredevil, which is a
We're talking about X-Men Dark Phoenix.
Well, hold on, I was just throwing in an extra comment about Deadpool first. I hope that we get to that bullshit where Professor X hangs out with that space princess named Lilandra or whatever from the Shi'ar Empire, and then they meet fucking Corsair. Remember all that stuff?
Directed by, what's her name? What's his name? Simon Kinberg.
Oh yeah, he's finally directing them because he's been like producing them forever, right?
He was also like he's a very prolific producer. He's a writer producer sort of thing.
Oh no, I dropped my flashlight with an A.
Oh no, we don't. Why does that matter?
Yeah, people in the comments will tell you, David. Won't you guys? All right, glad I could trust you.
So yeah.
Anyway,
that's about it.
Oh,
for the
and
Fox
some
news.
featured news was the Alien prologue teaser that came out, which we're both pretty excited for. We've watched the Alien movies.
So, there was. Oh yeah, you skipped over the Disney moving the Star Wars release dates around, and that
cares?
That the Captain America director is going to make the Narnia Silver Chair movie.
Star Wars is gonna make $1 billion no matter what day of the week you release it on. You could put it out on a Monday.
Star Wars episode. It's funny because they're moving from the winter to the summer, so like the first weeks of May. So I guess that's typically where Marvel movies are opening. So I guess where they're gonna put the Marvel movies now because they have to maybe where they put
Well, I mean, I think they're going to start
movie.
softly slipping Marvel into winter after, like, Doctor Strange came out in November last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Avengers
Thor
Infinity
3 is
War is planned for
like
December
November this year. No,
yeah.
It's like, because like that's interesting because Star Wars movies, or at least the last two, opened in December, and that was a really great strategy for them because nobody wants to open against a Star Wars movie. So if you open in the
Alvin
first,
and the Chipmunks.
yeah, so
so
basically nothing worth mentioning opens against Star Wars in the first couple weeks of December, and then nothing worth mentioning opens until Valentine's Day weekend. So they basically have all of December and all of January to make their money. That's a really good strategy.
Well,
for them.
you know, I think one of the reasons also that Marvel movies are going to start slowly drifting over to later in the year, and Star Wars is going to start pulling back, is because I think that, Disney is realizing that Marvel movies are starting to kind of wind down. Like, they're not quite as big a fanfare as they used to be. Like, the movies are still okay. You know, they're not bad. But they're not quite as, like, magical as they were. They're not
as an event movie anymore.
Yeah, like, it's not like the motion picture event of the year. It's just, oh, hey, it's another Marvel movie, you know? Like, it became less special when they made 18 of them, which I know is not the actual number. I'm exaggerating.
3 are coming out this year.
Right? So I think what they're trying to do is, while they still can, they're going to just put out a whole bunch of Marvel movies at once, and then after the brand starts to sink a little, I don't think superhero movies as a whole are going to start slipping away. I think Marvel itself is going to start being less of a big deal. So they're going to start pushing them over into December and then pulling Star Wars back into the summer just so they can keep, like, you know, money churning for both.
I'm very curious to see how Star Wars Episode 8 opens, because the thing is, like, nobody really looks kindly back on like Star Wars on The Force Awakens. Like, not really.
Everyone really liked it for like a week, and then everyone just started complaining about it.
And it was the same thing with Rogue One, how they made a lot of money in a very short amount of time, but then nobody really talked about it after that.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure everyone's already got the assumption that Episode 8 is just going to be Episode 5 on, like, repeat.
On repeat.
Exactly.
And then, like, did anybody really care about the Star Wars Episode 7, 8 trailer? Like, I watched it, and I didn't really see, like, all the buzz. Like, it kind of came and went very quickly. I mean, there was more buzz for the Thor 3 trailer than for that.
It was trending on Facebook for like 2 hours, and then everyone else just went back about their business. Like
I cared more about like the trailer.
The Force
for
Awakens
Thor 3.
trailer blew up the internet. Remember, like everyone ever was talking about it, or editing parodies of it, or reacting to it.
And
then
nobody really cares.
Episode 8, it's just like, all right.
But then the Thor 3 trailer blew up and broke records.
Oh yeah, Thor 3 trailer, like that was great.
Everybody talked about that, but not about this. So that's kind of interesting. But
it's weird how the brands are going right now for like the big Disney movies, because it just seems like I think Disney is kind of like shooting themselves in the foot because they're putting out so many Star Wars movies and so many Marvel movies.
One per year is too many for Star Wars because it's a very small universe. I think that there should be a Star Wars movie at the very most every 2 years.
That would make it feel like it's not getting.
It's like because it's like special. It's like an event. You don't just see it every year. It's not.
If it becomes an annual thing, it just becomes all right. Just another Star Wars movie. If you put out one a year forever, like that's what immediately killed my Star Wars hype forever. As soon as Disney put out their big release schedule with one every year, and I'm like, well, I still remember how awesome it was. Like, say what you want about the movie, there was like electricity in the air when everyone went to go see Force Awakens. Everyone was like. Had their minds blown. Because it was something
new and something different.
Everyone was
not
super
be
excited.
That anymore.
And now it's just like everyone walks in, it's just like, yeah, it's another one. Like, yeah. I took a girl to the premiere of Star Wars 7, and we were like so excited and happy, and like it was the greatest. And I took a different girl to the premiere of Rogue One, and it was just like, alright, it's just a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has anything to do because both of them really like Star Wars like more than I did, and that's why we went to those. And I remember, didn't you yell at me a whole lot for supporting the Disney machine?
I don't remember, honestly, but
Every time I take a girl on a date
to
see a movie, they usually want to see a movie that's produced by Disney, and every time I do, you yell at me, and you're like, why do you go see Beauty and the Beast? You're supporting the Disney remakes of, like, cartoons from 20 years ago. And I replied with, yeah? I don't feel good about it. I don't think I made the right choice.
So, and it's funny how both of those dates didn't end up going anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Disney is not conducive for romantic material.
If a girl takes me to go see, like, fucking, I don't know, like a John Carpenter movie, I think we'll have a second date, but that's not going to happen, so.
So let's continue onwards. And so, today is a very Fox-centric episode because Fox just shuffled around its release dates, and our two featured stories are both about Fox movies. So let's move on to... So, again, Xavier mentioned it earlier, but there was a short video released on the 20th Century Fox YouTube channel called Alien Covenant Prologue, where it shows, like, what happened in between Alien Prometheus and Alien Covenant, where, if you don't know, at the end of Prometheus, only... Discount Ripley #1 and Michael Fassbender robot survived the whole giant weird black goo and aliens thing that happened.
Then they hijack the ship.
Then they hijack the ship and go off into space, and then we learn that Shaw or Discount Ripley.
I had no idea that
David
many people liked her character until they started complaining that she wasn't in the Covenant trailer.
And then they repaired her. She repaired she
stapled on Michael Fassbender's blonde head
back to his body, and then turns out they arrive at the alien planet, and you see these weird, like, I've got some screenshots here where you see this like mountainous thing with this giant floating sphere above it. And then there's this giant circular courtyard with this domed building next to it. And then the alien ship arrives, and then my theory is that you see all these, like, black canisters floating down as the bottom of the ship opens. So there's a theory that David, Michael Fassbender robot, bombed the alien planet with that black goo from the first movie.
Yeah, so I have a theory that
confirmed by
Shaw
the
doesn't make it through the cryosleep. Like, she dies off screen. And David Robot goes nuts and is just like, all right, I'm going to fucking kill all these alien guys for everything.
They are dead, because you see in the trailer for Alien Covenant...
Yeah, the trailer for Alien Covenant has some of the same locations.
You see the same, like, giant courtyard and the domed building next to it, except that it's covered in, like, dead bodies. And then you see a lone figure... And then you see a lone figure in a cloak walking through it, which you also see in the trailer... with, like, holding a gun up, and that...
I think he's holding up, like, a flare gun or something.
Yeah, and you also see him, like, blowing up the ship or something.
Yeah.
So, like, so the plot is that, like, Discount Ripley #2, a.k.a. Catherine Waterston and her crew...
Oh, yeah, there's another Discount Ripley who's also wearing the white tank top and white panties sort of look.
Yeah.
Isn't she?
And then her crew lands on the same planet, except after all the stuff that David did went down. And they're bringing another Michael Fassbender bot with them.
Can you imagine if the final battle of the movie is like Michael Fassbender bots fight each other?
That sounds amazing.
And one has black hair, and they're just fighting with, like, swords or something on top of the ship.
Although it's also entirely possible that Shaw is still alive, because it said, like, this is, like, 10 years after Prometheus.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that she's alive, and in the first teaser trailer, you see this weird, like, expansive white room with a piano, and then David is in it, and then there's this person sitting at a chair that might be Shaw.
Maybe?
So who knows?
Isn't she also the girl with the dragon tattoo?
This is Noomi Rapace, not what's her name, it's Rooney Mara, not Kate Mara, the other Mara.
I swear she was, let's see. Yeah, she was. She was in the original version from 2009, I think.
The Swedish one?
foreign film version.
Oh yeah, because she's a Swedish actress, like Rebecca Ferguson. But anyway, so my question is that, like, what is Alien Covenant about? Because, like, I feel like Prometheus suffered from this identity crisis too, but to a lesser extent. Like, it's like, because Ridley Scott is bringing this whole angle of, like, weird, like, creationism versus evolution. Like, were we created by aliens, or did we evolve on our own? And it's like that sort of, like, thoughtful science fiction angle to it.
Philosophical,
but
like,
kind of in the same movie.
It's weird how it kind of, like, it's a premise that both backhands evolution and religion, and it's like, no, we got a third idea. What if this happened? And it's, like, an interesting sci-fi concept.
And it's, like, questioning our order. But then
also
it's in the same movie.
Like, Alien is a slasher movie in space, so it's kind of like the two tones clash.
It's an identity crisis. Like, is it going to be like an Arthur C. Clarke novel, or is it going to be Halloween?
Yeah. Is it going to be fucking Star Trek? Which one is it?
Star Chase?
Trek? Yeah, is it going to be the
Chase from TNG?
Or is it going to be Friday the 13th in space, which happened once?
Because I'm really liking all this, like this, like, science fiction, like, creationism angle to it. It's kind of weird and kind of interesting. But it's something different, and it makes you think. But then again, I also like the sort of, like, that, because, like, the first Alien movie was all about, like, mystery, the unknown. There wasn't supposed to be an answer to who was that alien ship.
With it. It went too far in a
There wasn't supposed to be an answer to who is this ship, where is this ship from. It's just like, oh, it's this weird ship with this weird alien on it. Oh, look, space is terrifying. And then now he's trying to go back and answer that. But
then, of course, they kind of, like, they're trying to do the same thing with the sequel, but they're also kind of wussing out because everyone was like, hey, why aren't there any aliens in our Aliens movie? And I'm sure in Ridley Scott's mind, it's like, it's not an Aliens movie. Just like how Captain America is not an Iron Man movie. They're in the same universe, but they're, like, I think Prometheus, had it been released, like, 4 years later, would not have gotten nearly as much hate because the concept of a cinematic universe with different things in it had not been fully grasped by the mainstream yet. So,
the Avengers came out the exact same year as Prometheus.
The first
one.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Prometheus was 2011.
Prometheus wasn't. No, Prometheus was 2012. It was in the same year.
Look this up.
It was in the same year. It was like a couple months afterwards. Yeah, 2012 science fiction film.
Okay.
Prometheus is a 2012 science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott, written by John Spates and Damon Lindelof.
Then what came out in 2011? Nothing?
Nope, it's 2012.
2011 was the year that nothing happened.
It was the year... Let's see, it came out in the United States on June 8th, 2012. So...
But what happened in 2011?
Nothing.
I'm trying to confuse
X-Men
you
First
right now.
Class
That's
came
the point
out.
of this. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess something did happen.
So it's like, my question is, like
what are they going for? Because like is
even
it an Alien sequel, or is it this deep, intelligent sci-fi thriller?
And then there's, of course, Neil Blomkamp, who wants to get his Alien fan fiction into this world, too.
Yeah, he showed those, like, concept sketches
he wrote
a couple of months
ago.
They're
not concept sketches, they're fan art. And he basically said,
pretty much.
I want to make my fan art into a movie. You want to make this happen? I got Sigourney Weaver on board.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons that they haven't been able to make a proper Alien sequel in a long time is because Sigourney Weaver actually partially owns the rights to those movies and is able to, like, basically block anyone if they're like, well, we want another movie with Ripley, and she can go, no.
And then
the reason that Blomkamp...
Sigourney Weaver saw what's his name? What's his first movie? The one that everybody likes.
District 9.
District 9, and she loved District 9, so she's like, okay, I want him to make an Alien movie.
Well, wasn't she also in Chappie?
She was.
Yeah,
she wanted to be in Chappie because of District 9, and now she really likes him because of all that science fiction stuff.
So good for him. Hopefully he can insert another one of his favorite bands into the Alien movie inappropriately to the point that it's weird.
The favorite South African rap group.
or his...
The Antwoord.
Or a bad guy named America.
So it's like it's like Fox kind of has a sort of like hands-off approach to cinematic universes because, look at the whole nightmare that's Fox's X-Men movies.
The continuity is non-existent.
I think that they need to, if they want to make an alien movie a cinematic universe, which they totally could do, and they're moving that direction, they need a bit more central planning. They need a Feige.
Yeah, they need, like... Do you think Ridley Scott can do the alien universe job, or do you think he's not up for it? Because
I think he's not up for it. He's not a story director. He's more of like a visuals and atmosphere director. Yeah, so he's not a story guy. So I think like
that voice crack though.
Sorry
everyone.
But
that was me. I did that.
My choice would be John Spates, because he co-wrote the first Prometheus movie, and he also wrote Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that guy.
He's a science fiction guy. I was
wondering where else I'd heard his name.
And he also wrote Passengers, but I'll forgive him for that. So I think
we all have a real bad one.
I think he should be the cinematic universe guy. But that's just my thing. Anyway, I'm
actually not bothered by the fact that Danny McBride is in Alien Covenant, by the way, because I think
James Franco.
And James Franco. Because I know that while James Franco is probably going to be in it for like 10 minutes, Danny McBride is actually a really good actor. Like, if you've seen the show Vice Principals, he is super good in that. That is like one of the best comedy shows that's been on in a long time.
And he's just been typecast
kind of
as
like
the funny
an emotional
fat guy.
center to it. And I'm actually excited for him to be like in a more serious role.
He's just stereotyped as he's like how Dan Fogler was like the funny fat guy, but then he was in Fantastic Beasts and he was super good. He was like one of the best characters.
Dan Fogler also, I kind of attribute his like brief stint on Hannibal as one of the things that sort of like unscrewed his career so he could be things other than just diet Jack Black.
Yeah, so I think that we're all excited for Alien Covenant, not because we think it's going to be a good movie, but just because we want to know what the heck is going on in Ridley Scott's mind.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that sucks, but that's accurate. Like, I'm really like, what direction are you going with it at this point, man? I'm on board just for the fact that I'm so confused and dumbfounded that I'm like, oh, he's got something. It can't just be like him making it up while he's going along. He's got some kind of idea.
And I'm trying to figure out what that is.
I'm sad, though, because all of those Aliens comic books that I've read are now, like, for sure not canon, because they have the engineers, or the space jockeys in them, and they are way different from the ones in Prometheus.
I'm not
going to think about it. Also, the Alien vs. Predator movies aren't canon either, because the aliens didn't exist until, like, Prometheus. Like, that showed when they started, so...
They were Those were directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, so I don't think anybody's going to really care about that.
Yeah, I guess. I remember one of the things that pissed me off about Aliens vs. Predator is that he's like, yeah, these are the toughest predators ever. The ones that fought Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Glover, those ones were wimp predators. Those guys sucked. Here's our cool, super badass mega predators. And then they die super easy and are, like, really bad at being predators. And then everyone's like, what the fuck, Paul? And he's like, Resident Evil. So.
Yeah, I love how he just took a break from directing Resident Evil movies to directing Alien vs. Predator movies, and now he's back directing Resident Evil movies.
Well, what is he gonna do now that that's over? I mean,
how
else is he gonna prove that his wife is pretty all the time?
He signed on to doing something, I just don't remember what. It's another video game adaptation, though.
Oh, God, I don't even care anymore.
So anyway, our second piece of featured news that we're going to be talking about is the new Kingsman: The Golden Circle trailer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I love Kingsman.
So Kingsman has been like a fascination of ours for quite a while now, just because
I remember I saw it on Valentine's Day weekend 2015, and I was on vacation with my parents in California, in one of the worst cities that I've ever been in, Palm Springs. And it was so awesome. I loved it. It was great. It was so much fun, and it's like...
Well, it's just such a well-put-together movie.
2015 was a great year for spy movies, because we got Kingsman and Mission Impossible, but
Not bad
Spectre.
Mission Impossible. And then what was it? Spectre?
Spectre was terrible.
Oh yeah. Which one came out before that? It was Skyfall was 2012, right?
2012. We don't have enough time to talk about why Spectre was terrible because I could talk your ear off all day about that. But
I haven't even seen it.
Kingsman is going to be great.
I'll take your word for it.
And like I loved Kingsman because it was like a fun spy movie, but it reminds me of spy movies. But the main character
reminds me of like the tone of Deadpool comics, where it's like. But it's really thoughtful and intelligent, but also like kind of like got this in-your-face attitude, and it's really goofy and vulgar.
And I also liked how the main character had a character arc in this, because in most spy movies, especially like Mission Impossible movies, where they have Tom Cruise, and like James Bond movies, they don't really have a character arc for the main character. He just kind of does stuff.
He just shows up, he has an adventure, and then it cuts to credits, and then he shows up again in 3 years, and you're like, hey, it's him again, cool.
It's him again. But Eggsy had, like, a motivation, he had a character arc, and he grew as a person over the story, and he learned to overcome his prejudices, and he became a better person, and I thought that was really great. And although it didn't have a ton of action, it had really good action.
For what was good, like, the fight scene in the church is like
the fight scene in the church is awesome. The bar scene,
history.
The bar scene was great.
Or just any fight with Gazelle, like especially
Gazelle
at the
was
end,
great. Sophia Boutella can move.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that you and I did when we became friends was watch Kingsman together because I hadn't seen it yet, and then
I had it on
DVD to my house, and then we were like, "Wow, this is pretty good."
Yeah, it's so good that I bought the DVD. It's that good. Because nobody buys DVDs anymore.
It's weird that that's like a benchmark of quality now. But I think that's like a completely a sort of side effect of streaming is that like you only buy something on the physical copy if you can't live without it. Like you like it that much.
I love it.
But we're really excited for Kingsman 2
trailer came out. And I thought it was really cool because
it wasn't that
there were a couple of things that I want to talk about.
That they showed.
There's that weird sped up trailer that like there were all these like screen grab. They're like I took a bunch of screen grabs from it, and it's kind of weird and interesting. Cause like Poppy is the villain played by what's her name,
not
Julianne
Jodie
Moore
Foster
from Hunger
not
Games.
Jodie Foster, Clarice.
And there's gonna be like it's like really weird because there's gonna be Poppyland. You see like the jungle thing. There's Poppyland.
Yeah.
And then there's
because there's no Kingsman 2 comic as far as I know, so I have no idea where they're going with this.
So there's Poppy's Diner, and then Poppy's Pharmaceuticals, and then Poppy has a burger in her diner, and then there's Poppy's Amphitheater showing Captain Fantastic, and it's like, and then there's Poppy giving this weird guy a prosthetic limb that you see in the trailer, going a giant punch thing.
Oh yeah, that guy has the grapple hook arm. He's basically Bionic Commando.
Yeah, and it's like kind of weird, but the trailer that they released was fantastic because I loved everything about it. Like the narration at the beginning was a little bit generic, but after that it was good. Like
yeah,
I really liked how they're going for like the first film was more like a 60s James Bond retro thing.
This one
even
feels
going
more
down
like,
to the
even going down to the aesthetic.
Even going down to the woman having sex with him for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And except that they went for a little bit of more of an R-rated thing with this, but in this
one feels more like a
they're going like
it looked like a 70s
I said it was like a
movie.
70s or an 80s Bond movie. You know, like the crappy ones with Roger Moore. That's sort of like 70s style and aesthetic to it with like the crushed velvet orange jacket and everything.
Yeah.
And like the jungle finale.
I can only imagine the third one's gonna look like one of those cheesy 90s spy movies where everything has
love
like super
cheesy
bright
90s
poppy
spy
colors.
movies with like the techno cover of the James Bond theme and Tina Turner songs.
Limp Bizkit Mission Impossible music. Fuck, dude.
Or
you
Madonna,
remember that?
Or Madonna doing Die Another Day, which is her worst song ever. I love it. It's like, but anyway, this movie is kind of cool because it's got that sort of like 70s retro aesthetic to it, because most spy movies are either like set in the 60s or today, and then there's of course Atomic Blonde, which is going to be in the 80s, but that's more like a punk rock thing.
Yeah.
So I like the 70s style to it because like it feels like a love letter to a series of like some an era of Bond movies that nobody really talks about or likes.
Yeah,
like
well, it's
like
cool that they're paying tribute.
The guy
to that,
doing like Jeff Bridges doing a bar scene with a whip, cowboy spies, kind of feels like that scene in that one Bond movie where he's driving the AMC car and he says, "That's right, partner, we're gonna flip over the river." And it's just so goofy, and I kind of cool like that. And then there was this other thing that I noticed that even Xavier doesn't notice, and he should feel ashamed for this because he's a comic book
you
fan.
Pointed this out, and I completely didn't even know it. Like, hadn't occurred to me at all. But after you said it, it makes perfect sense.
Like the action, the way Matthew Vaughn, the director, films his action scenes really feels like a comic book. Because if you watch the trailer for it, there's a lot of like quick motion, like a lot of really quick cuts and like fluid motion, and then like slow motion, almost to like pause the scene, like when he's flying over the cab or when they're flying down in the gondola
or
thing.
like when the bionic arm grabs him and then pulls him back. Like first it looks like it's going really really fast, and then it just
really
slows down
fast, and then it slows down, and that's like the comic book style. It's like reading a comic book action scene.
Yeah, right? Where it looks like the motion is going really fast, but then there's like the big panels that stop to really focus in on it and help you kind of take in what's happening in the action scene. So as opposed to like a Michael Bay action sequence where it's just like sensory overload, where it's like everything happening in real time, like a million robots punching each other on screen all at once. It's like,
and it's not like a Zack Snyder scene either.
Yeah, it's a use of slow motion that feels appropriate because
it's not a Zack
Snyder
scene.
It stops it at points of interest to help it like fix the flow of the scene. I like the way they did it.
So it's like a middle ground between Zack Snyder and Michael Bay, and that's a really cool medium. And I think it's a really
right. It's a happy
aesthetic.
Medium.
And that's kind of cool because it's like nobody's really ever tried to film a comic book like a comic book.
I mean, there of course there was like The Spirit and Sin City, one of which was great.
Which was trying to copy it panel for panel, but it's not trying to copy it panel for panel, but trying to copy the aesthetic and the way things flow.
Because there is no Kingsman 2 comic after the first one, as far as I know. I mean, I've read Kingsman, I've read The Secret Service. I have no idea what happens after that if there is another comic. Like I don't think there is one. But I know that Matthew Vaughn like co-wrote the comic, so of course like
they were like working on the script for the movie and the comic at the same time, so they were exchanging notes.
Pretty much, except I think the villain of Kingsman 1 was a lot more interesting in the movie version because in
the comic book,
he was just some like doofy looking white guy, like he looked like John from Sex
Did you
Criminals.
know that they used the same like? This is a fun little detail. So in the Kingsman comic, the opening scene is where they kidnap Mark Hamill.
I read that. I remember.
You know the doctor's name, like the doofy white guy villain of the first one, or the comic. They use that guy's name, Professor Arnold, for the character that Mark Hamill plays in the Kingsman movie.
And then swapped out the bad guy with a character that Samuel L. Jackson played, who basically filled the same role. It was great.
Isn't that a fun little detail?
I also remember like the book being a little bit darker. Like Eggsy's family were just way shittier.
And then of course, I remember I read the comic book once too, and like there's instead of testing it at a church or Westboro Baptist Church, basically instead of testing it at Westboro Baptist Church. They test their super weapon
on
a wedding on the beach. Wedding.
Oh yeah, and then they snipe the bride after she kills everyone.
Yeah, and that's like a lot darker. And then of course there's the scene in the book where Eggsy has to get back to London in like 24 hours from South America. So he basically shoots up a drug dealer's mansion and then steals his private plane. So the movie's dark. But the comic book is darker, and I'm excited.
That seems to be the case with anything written by Mark Miller.
So I'm excited
Kick-Ass
for the
2.
movie. Yeah.
So do you remember Kick-Ass 2? Did you ever watch that?
I didn't see it. I haven't seen the first one. I haven't seen either of them.
Kick-Ass 1 is worth a watch. Kick-Ass 2
was not directed by Matthew Vaughn, so it's not worth a watch.
Well, that's a little bit dismissive, but I'll also agree with you that it's not worth a watch. Like, Kick-Ass 2 to me just felt like really toothless and kind of like wimpy by comparison to the comic, because the comic went really dark in a lot of spots, and then the movie like had the same scenes, but then just kind of like joked it off and like was like, well, that's a little bit much. We won't do that. Like, and then the script basically said that.
And then but I'm excited for Kingsman because like before Kingsman, Matthew Vaughn always felt like somebody who hadn't really come into his own yet. He was always like trying new things, but he hadn't really hit his groove yet. But Kingsman is the best movie he's ever made.
I'm really excited for the sequel. I can't wait to see how it turns out.
I'm really excited. So after this, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about Fight Club, and then Xavier wants to talk about something if he wants to.
Oh yeah, there's some stuff. Yeah, so for a new episode of Couch Potatoes, we watched Fight Club, and so David said he actually had some like new thoughts on it after letting it gestate for a while. So go check out that episode when that comes out.
Whenever that comes out, we've got a guest editor on that one.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a guest editor.
We've got a guest editor on that one.
We have a guest editor.
Yeah, Josh is editing for me.
Yeah, he's our guest editor.
Yeah. So
if you say it more times, it'll just be funny.
It will be. So Fight Club I saw, and I don't know, like, there's a couple of things. So I kind of felt like the fan base kind of ruined this movie for me, because whenever I think of like Fight Club, I just think of obnoxious, like, sort of like frat style guys talking about, oh, it's great, Fight Club's great, you should totally see it. Like,
yeah,
those kind of guys in our high school just talking about it all the time. I just were like, oh.
Oh yeah, dude, Fight Club's great, man. Like, for sure, bro. What sucks is it's one of my favorite movies, but like there's
the fan base ruined it. It's like how
I between spoiling it all over or constantly repeating that not funny thing. Your first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Every fucking time I say that's one of my favorite movies, there's some asshole in the immediate vicinity who goes, first rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. And I'm like, fuck off! But anyway, yeah.
So yeah,
I get real tired of that.
It's kind of like how Doctor Who has a garbage fan base, but it's much better than the fan base makes it out to be.
Yeah. After watching a few episodes, I'll agree, like, fan bases just ruin everything, man.
Except for Star Trek. The Star Trek fan base isn't weird
because the Star Trek fan base are now like basically a battered housewife of a fan base and they're talk
also
about
like
it anymore.
They're also like in their 30s and their 40s. They're older, so they're not as obnoxious.
Star Trek has been so abused over the last few years that they don't have anything nice or mean to say about it. They just
Star Trek Discovery, yeah.
It's just a thing that's in the back of their heads. They just Star Wars versus Star Trek war is over.
Like nobody really talks about nobody says, oh, you gotta watch, Star Trek is the best, so much better than everything else. Like that kind of ended, and it's kind of better for that because when you're talking about Star Trek, you don't have to bring up Star Wars up anymore. But in terms of Fight Club,
they've come into their own so well that there's not really a comparison at this point.
Yeah, one of them is garbage and the other is not. I'm not going to tell you
which. Whoa! Bold statement. Let's see how that does.
I'm not going to tell you which is garbage and which isn't. Hint.
I think we can tell.
They're both garbage, okay? So, Fight Club,
Into Darkness was the best.
I'm not even talking about... I don't even count the new Star Trek movies as Star Trek. Do you really... It's like, do you count the Deadpool movie as Deadpool?
I count it as a thing that has the same name and shares similarities, but...
That's what I think about
it kind of misses the mark in a lot of spots.
That's what I think about with the new Star Trek movies. They have the same names, and they have similar personalities, but they're not really Star Trek.
Yeah, it's like a hyper mainstream version of the thing that you like.
Yeah. So with Fight Club, it's kind of weird.
Of course it wasn't going to live up to the hype.
I didn't really understand what... It was kind of funny how the moments that everybody hyped up about it weren't the moments that I liked. So everything
there's a
else
lot of scenes in the movie that are really good, but like all of my favorite ones aren't the ones that get
all
referenced.
The quoted moments are the worst ones, but everything else
well,
is more interesting. Like his relationship with Marla is a lot more interesting than Project Mayhem.
Well, yeah, because like they just have this weird chemistry of like two people who hate each other but also don't at the same time. Like
and they're drawn to each other.
It's really fun because they're both so sarcastic.
They're drawn to each other because they're just as pathetic as the other person is, but they also hate each other, and they end up together.
You know, I read Fight Club too. The comic.
Don't mention it.
The 10th issue of that, I finally got around to reading it. I didn't even finish it the first time. I just decided to pick it back up and read the rest of it. The 10th issue of that is just about Chuck Palahniuk, the author, walking around arguing with his friends and the fan base about how he thinks the ending is great, and they're like, no, that's a dumb ending. It's the most, like, self-absorbed, masturbatory ending to a comic ever. Like, it boggles my mind.
Yeah, the movie, I think... You know what? I don't think there should be a sequel to the movie.
I don't either.
I don't think there should ever be a sequel to it.
World War Z 2 concerns me because that means that Brad Pitt and David Fincher are hanging out again. One of them's going to be like, well, there's a Fight Club 2 comic book. Maybe we could use that. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that conversation to take place at any point.
Well, they're talented enough that maybe they could draw something good out of it that the author didn't see.
Maybe. I mean, because, like, the Fight Club movie is exponentially better than the book. Like, not to say the book is bad, but the movie just stands, like, way, way higher on its own. And I kind of feel like if they did try it, there could be a chance that they pull something interesting about it.
You know, I think we're really, really, this is a lot longer than I intended it to be. It's already over an hour. So I think we need to move on to your final thing, which is, I'm going to give you a choice here. You can either talk about Deadpool 2 and how that relates to Fight Club, or you can rant about Dan Slott. One of the two.
I'll save my Dan Slott bile and hate for a later time.
So in the meantime,
while we were watching Fight Club 2, I kept thinking
Fight Club 2,
or no, not Fight Club 2. Oh, fuck. I'm getting all confused because you gave me like a time limit. While we were watching Fight Club, I kept thinking this is the exact same tone and presentation of Deadpool comics from the 90s. Like, they're very introspective, they're somewhat philosophical, but for the most part very, like, sarcastically cynical, but at the same time, like, optimistic. It's a very strange mix of emotions that kind of work well together. And I think the Deadpool movie didn't quite hit its mark for me because it was a little
I didn't like
fun.
it either.
I liked it, but I didn't it wasn't enough for me. It is what I'm saying. It was too happy and fun, and also like there was nothing really bitter about it.
Masturbation jokes. Ha 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 ha.
Oh hey, he's got a baby hand. He's gonna jerk off. Like, to me, Deadpool has always been kind of a tragedy character, and seeing a movie that's like, let's hype him up to be this really fun-loving, happy guy who's, like, sure, he got a little pissed off and a little sad in a couple of spots, but not nearly enough. Like, it just seems like they didn't... I'm not going to say they didn't understand the character. I think they did, but they didn't... They were afraid that audiences couldn't accept the actual Deadpool, so they gave us something a little bit more watered down. So... his character arc is almost reduced to zero in the movie, and
so what can we learn from Fight Club for Deadpool 2?
Deadpool 2 needs to push for darker and grittier, while keeping the humor needs to stop being Judd Apatow. It needs to be more like in the range of like very cynical but also optimistic at the same time, where the main character has a very horrible life, but at least there's hope that it could possibly potentially get better. Because the story of Deadpool is about a supervillain trying to be a better person over the course of many, many years, till eventually he becomes a member of the Avengers. And to me, it seemed like the Deadpool movie is, here's a badass, wisecracking military guy who's a mercenary, and now his skin gets messed up, and he's a little sad, but he's still a wisecracking, badass military mercenary man, and he has a girlfriend. And then
he ends up
both.
In the movie.
He ends up with Vanessa
happier
and both.
than he was beforehand.
Yeah, right. Like his character arc was, he was a guy who was happy, but now he's happier. That to me is like that completely is just so deflated and lame compared to like the really depressing and gross versions of the Deadpool character from the books. And I think that if they wanted to make Deadpool 2 work, I would say take notes from how the editing and pacing and direction
CG
of a movie
sex
like
scenes?
Yeah, that too. Of how Fight Club worked, because it's just sort of like it's hard to explain. If there's any movie that Deadpool comics remind me of, it would be that. So I'm saying, don't make Deadpool like mainstream and fun for audiences. I want it to be more like how it actually is, which is kind of like, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth sometimes, but at the same time it also gives you a little bit of hope, because you're like, well, if a piece of shit like that can get better, anybody can. That's what's relatable about Deadpool, is he's a really awful guy who gets better over the course of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
So yeah, it's kind of that sort of tone that Fight Club is, but just don't give him an alternate personality. Or
don't do what Daniel Way did, because he did have an alternate personality.
You liked Daniel Way.
I do, but I also don't like the fact that he gave him the alternate personality for a little while, because that got explained away in some really dumb ways. Because it turns out that his alternate personality is an obscure Captain America villain.
What?
Yeah, right? So, I would say avoid the split personality thing for the most part, because that's kind of dumb and weird. And go a little bit harder for the tone of the Joe Kelly comics, because those get pretty dark, but also have this sort of lightheartedness to them. It's the thing about Deadpool, and the reason that the way I'm describing it makes no sense, is that it's this giant sort of juxtaposition of like really dark scenarios with a character who makes like really happy jokes. Like it's someone whose life sucks, but at least they have a sense of humor about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Fight Club.
Hey.
So something else that pissed me off about the movie is that they completely ruined Deadpool's relationship with Blind Al. The blind lady he lives with, right? You know what their situation is in the comics? No. She's some like ex-special forces person who's like 90, and he kidnapped her instead of assassinating her one time because he's crazy, and then just keeps her locked up in his house and serves as his butler, basically. And if she ever leaves his house, he hunts down and kills whoever helps her escape. Then, if she does something to piss him off, he locks her in his attic filled with booby traps and like spikes and blades and shit. And she just has to wait there until he comes and gets her out. Like, he's a very sadistic, weird, evil person. And it's like...
But nope, they're just roommates.
No, they're just goofy roommates, and he makes jokes at her. Right? I'm sure people hearing that are going to be like, what the fuck? When would Deadpool ever do something that horrible to an old lady? That was like the first stuff he did. No one reads the classic comics from Joe Kelly, but they're like the best ones. So yeah.
I think what we
make
can
it darker.
what we can learn from this episode is that 20th Century Fox is doing a lot of interesting things. So please don't screw them up, 20th Century Fox. Like, don't screw up X-Men, don't screw up Alien, don't screw up Deadpool, don't screw up Kingsman, and
I'm sure that Deadpool is not going to have time to be dark because now Cable's there, so now it's just going to be the two of them. It's just going to be Cable is serious and wants to get things done, and Deadpool is going to be making jokes at him the whole time, and Cable's probably going to explode his head a couple of times for fun.
And they're going to grow back.
Yeah. And then maybe there'll be a couple of jokes about there'll be some homoerotic tension between them.
And a lot of fan fiction writers will write some erotic fan fiction.
You know what? Spidey Pool became very prominent over the past few years, especially now that Andrew Garfield and Ryan Reynolds kissed at that award show.
Golden Globes.
You know what? Cable Pool is gonna make a comeback. It's gonna be real bad. There's gonna be all these anime pictures of Cable with his robot arm and his silky smooth abs, and Deadpool with his patchy skin crawling up him and kissing his neck a little and going, "Oh, Cable, you're my favorite." And then like all the teenage girls drawing this will be like, "Man, there is nothing wrong with making this for like my free time." So yeah.
It's nothing worse than it's not any worse than making this in our free time.
You're right. We're just terrible people. Fuck it. Let's kill ourselves. See you next week, everybody.
See you next time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments on YouTube or tweet them to us.
That'll be our next segment for next episode.
We'd love to have some questions, so it's not just us talking about stuff. It's like more of a conversation. We'd love to have that. So just send us some questions, like and do all those YouTube things, and if you're not listening,
don't do that. I've had a strict policy of don't tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. Because
I only said like, not comment and subscribe, but you just
like, comment, subscribe, tweet, share on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, like all that shit. I hate that. That's the worst.
And if you're not listening to this on YouTube, if it's like, I don't know, on Google Play or something, then check us out on YouTube anyway, because we have YouTube videos and we need those for you to watch them so we can have food.
Okay. What? Yeah, I haven't been able to pay for lunch for the past 3 weeks, so.
Yay! We need food.
It's a fun weight loss technique, everyone. Just stop having money.
We'll see you next time. Have fun.
Wow, I ended this on such a dour note. Fuck, sorry.
This is why you are not Spider-Man, you're Deadpool.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
We'll see you next time, and goodbye. Wait, don't stop recording. I need you to do the countdown thing again.
Okay.
1.
Fuck, hold on. Start over.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6.
5.
You glitched out. I couldn't hear 7.
You didn't. I didn't hear you saying 6.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5. Every time we get to past 4, it's like it cuts out. What the hell?
Let's try this again.
Can you sync it up with the ones that we have?
1.
Like we've 2.
1.
Did you just go quiet to mess with me?
1.
2,
3,
4,
5,
6. Every time. All right, that'll be all. All right, we've done it enough times that you can sync it. All right.
I hope so.
All right, good work. It was a good one. You know what? I knew that the 30 to 45 minute thing wouldn't work because no good podcast can stay within that time range.
Well, so I've watched several that have done that successfully.
We're not as good as other people.
Well, we need to be.
I'm going to stop recording.
Fine.
Hey there, kids. Did you enjoy that messy garbage podcast? Well, guess what? If you want to go see the next one, you can go click on the link in the description. And episode 2's already out on David's channel. You could go watch it there if you want to. Or if you don't, you could just not. But from now on, all of the podcasts will be over on his channel. Because I don't care or have the time to edit them, so that he'll be in charge of those. So go on and subscribe to whatever dumb name his channel has now. I think he changed it. So go ahead and do that. Do it right now. Did you do it yet? Okay, good. Thanks. All right, great. See ya.